Cambridge Insider podcast time. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the trending and most popular podcast in F1 high school international education consulting, the Cambridge Insider podcast. As per usual, my co-host, Meg. Meg, what do you think about that as an introduction for the podcast?
I thought that was very charming, Stephen. You're being true to form. Yes. And I wonder how many podcasts there are specific to this universe that we cover, especially for the secondary education market. Yeah, that's our niche, and that's really what. And it's interesting because whenever we're looking for information and we're marking trends and whatever, we're always starting with higher ed because that's where most of the numbers are coming from, right? So we really interpret and have a lot of data to use ourselves to be able to correlate.
Absolutely. And I think, one of the big goals of the podcast from the very beginning was to be able to provide that sort of newest information, cutting edge information, what's happening in the market. I will say, and I think this is kudos to our production team, Dean, who works behind the scenes and does a lot of the research as well, is that I think we've expanded a little bit. If I think about the episodes that we've done in just the last month or so, there's a lot of great information there for people within the industry, absolutely, but for people outside of just international education, things that are exciting developments for the country, for education, for students, for student well-being, for diversity. So there's a lot that we talk about and cover, and personally, I'm proud of that. I think we've done a great job. So on today's episode, we're going to be discussing one of our very exciting new initiatives at Cambridge Network. And it is the Cambridge Network Direct Partnership Initiative. And I'm actually going to give over to Meg to sort of explore this with me a little bit more. So Meg, take it away.
So I know that the idea has kind of been floated around, toyed with out there. Can you explain to us exactly what a direct partnership is and what that means?
Absolutely. So Cambridge Network has this great new initiative where we partner schools in the US with schools abroad. And those partnerships are really designed to meet a couple of or fulfill a couple of needs that schools and school partners would have, most notably things like student exchange, direct student placement, professional development, language development, summer camp exchanges. So anything to do with, schools working together and the exchange of knowledge, the exchange of students, be that for temporary periods or longer periods of time. That's what direct placement and this direct partnership model is really aimed at doing. The difference, and some people might be listening to this and saying, but don't Cambridge already work with schools and recruit students from Southeast Asia to come to the United States? Yes, we do. The difference with direct partnerships from our more traditional, way of doing the recruitment work, which, by the way, we still do, is that direct partnerships really, Cambridge want to be able to, and we've done this successfully, broker a relationship or make a relationship, I suppose, foster a relationship between two schools or a school and an agency abroad, and then be able to walk away and have that relationship sustain itself. So we don't need to be there to maintain it, to be involved in student exchanges. We really want schools to be able to take the initiative, take the responsibility, and run the programs, run the partnership as they see fit and as best benefits them. So it really is exciting in terms of schools are able to sort of pick and choose. If I had a school that was like a sister school abroad, what would I want from that type of relationship? Do I want students to come to my campus for a couple of weeks? Do I want that school to potentially be open to me and my students and my faculty, helping them with their English development? We have a school recently that we've partnered with that's actually going to be doing a lot of Spanish language development for one of our schools in the US, because it's a school coming out of a network of schools in Spain. So they're able to have the expertise on the Spanish language. And of course, Spanish is, a formidable language in the US specifically, and offered at many of our partnered schools. So again, it's all about that flexibility for schools and to be able to have this mutually beneficial sort of relationship with a school abroad and use that to their benefit.
So how did all of that come about? And not only how did it come about, but how does a school like in America align their needs with a partner school? Like, how does that happen?
Both good questions, Meg. So the way in which it came about was really just, we were fortunate at Cambridge Network to have a network, for lack of a better word, of connections all around the world, specifically in the education sphere or education context. And we were wondering and sort of strategizing a little bit about how we could use that to the benefit of our partners. And that's really how the idea came about, was to say we have network schools that we know that are great contacts of ours that we've done work with in the past. Some of those network schools we've done recruitment work with, language development work with, academic services work with, events coordination work with. And we were wondering about how we could use that to really benefit our schools moving forward. And to continue, I suppose, working towards the goal of harmony within the world, adding diversity to school campuses. And that was really how this idea came about on a very basic level. In terms of how schools align, what their needs are, that's a great question, and that's really where Cambridge Network come into play. Is we obviously act as that mediator or that broker role right in the beginning. We know our schools in the US, our partner schools, and we have these connections abroad, and we're able to work with both parties independently to, number one, find out, is this something that you're interested in? It's not for every school. It will require a little bit of maintenance. It will require a little bit of investment in terms of your time into the actual program. So are you as a school interested in this? If you are interested in this, what do you think you would want from this type of relationship? Would you want a 2 or 3 week student exchange? Meaning a couple of my students, let's just as an example say a couple of my grade 10 students go abroad to Spain. Let's call it 5 of them go abroad to Spain. They spend 2 or 3 weeks there, and 5 of those students come to the US and spend 2 or 3 weeks here. And we have that exchange of ideas, that diversity that we bring to campus. There's just so much from an exchange like that we can both benefit from. Perhaps you're a school that says, you know what, I'm looking a little bit more for direct placement. I want students to come to my campus and spend a year, maybe even more on my campus. So maybe that's one of the sort of the needs that you want, or one of the things that you would want out of this relationship. I've had other schools that have said they want to be able to develop language and develop best practices for how we can, incorporate language, diversity, culture into our campuses. So it really depends on, number one, are you interested? And then number two, what can you offer, both as the school in the US, but also as the school abroad? And then if we have a couple of similarities, which we often do, schools that want to do exchanges, schools that are interested in doing summer camps or language development or professional development of the faculty, then we go about the final stage, which is really introducing to schools and sort of drawing up a very basic agreement that allows these schools the platform to work together moving forward.
So really, it's however you want to design it, as long as you and your partner are on the same wavelength, then the sky's the limit. It's really exciting to me because with all of the advanced technology and everybody being accustomed to designing plans, delivering messaging, teaching basically online, the sky's kind of the limit as far as what's possible with an overseas partner. So that sounds very exciting. And so the benefits then for a school who would want to do this are really multidimensional and as narrow or as broad as they wish to make it. Is that right?
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself. I think one of the keys of this and what we've seen work with past relationships that are ongoing at this stage and that we've brokered is that we want to get a general understanding of what the goals are, but we also want both partners to understand that times change, things change, and the as you mentioned, the great thing about this partnership is that it can develop, it can be flexible, and as new needs and wants come up as a partner, the hope is that you're comfortable enough and that partnership and relationship between the two schools is strong enough that you can say, hey, we've just seen this great thing. We want to try A, B, or C. What do you think? So yes, there's an understanding, sort of that mutual understanding in the beginning about what the goals are, but we really do want it to be flexible. And as you mentioned, the benefits of this are, as wide as really what you can think within this education sphere. Many schools are seeing an increase in diversity, an increase in cultural understanding, an increase in, best practices on not just the theoretical academic side of things, but just the social, emotional well-being of students and of teenagers. Those are really the exchange of ideas that I think are incredibly beneficial. And that's not even to speak of the wonderful opportunities for travel and student exchange. Anybody that's traveled to a different country and had the opportunity to perhaps go to a different school or stay in a different host family, or live ingrained in a city or a town or a school community for a couple of weeks will know what I'm talking about. So the benefit of that for the school community, and of course for the individual is immense. And that's really, the motivation behind what we've done here, and I think why we continue to see great success with this program.
What I love in everything that you just said is that, first of all, the cross effect, right? Everybody's involved on both sides. And also how this program isn't just an international program for a targeted audience. Something like that can really benefit the whole entire school community, right? All of these kids, American kids who have never had the opportunity and may not have the opportunity to go abroad or to study abroad or to study internationally, to be able to cross those lines right inside of your own classroom is pretty amazing.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And I do want to clarify one point that I think is important is I know many schools, many families that are hearing this for the first time, these are some of the questions that we have received, are wondering, but how much does something like this cost? If my student goes overseas, how much am I going to have to pay? The financial aspect of things is also flexible in terms of, we understand that sometimes families don't necessarily have the finance, and we give it over to the schools to be able to make opportunities for students to exchange, and not necessarily a big exchange of finances, but really an exchange of students living in the same home, taking the place of that student in the classroom for a couple of weeks. And that's really designed to meet the financial needs, I suppose, of some families and of some communities. So we're very mindful about that. Of course, there is the opportunity, as we mentioned, for you to do more of a direct placement over the long term. If there's a partner that's able to meet those needs, we want to be able to give you that opportunity as well. So just important to note, it really is flexible, and it's there for schools and for faculty and for administration to mold this into a program that meets some of the needs of them, of their community, and of their students.
So diversity and inclusion has been a buzzword of the entire year, right? We're seeing so much of that in education and so much focus on that in no matter what the school level is here. So that's a really interesting possibility to add into that whole equation.
Absolutely.
Very interesting.
Absolutely.
Thanks for explaining all that, Stephen.
Absolutely, Meg. And to all of our listeners, anybody that is, interested, fascinated by this, thinking, hey, why does my school not have this? If you're a school administrator thinking, this sounds like an awesome program, as always, with any initiative that Cambridge rolls out, reach out to your representatives. They'll be able to provide you with a little bit more information on exactly, what direct partnerships are all about. And feel free to drop us a line, drop us some questions as well. Executive Producer Dean will put the contact information up on the show notes so that you can ask a couple questions if you do have any about the Cambridge Network Direct Partnerships. Meg, any final thoughts as we say goodbye for this episode?
I think it's fantastic that that Cambridge is actually able to use our vast knowledge and our multiple contacts around the world to be able to offer something like this, because as a school, schools are often so focused on everything that needs to happen within their community, right? Understandably. And our community expands so many countries and so many areas. It's great that this can be an offering that can benefit really a whole range. And then taking the hard part of discovering that partner is taken away. And then those partners can just use all the creative mind space they've ever thought of in education and develop a program that works for them.
Exactly, 100%. Meg, as always, thank you for joining me. To all of our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. We'll catch you around the next episode of the Cambridge Insider podcast. Bye-bye, everybody.